So yesterday I put out a poll on which player you thought has been the Bulls' best player to come off the bench between Otto Porter, Thaddeus Young, and Garret Temple. And the results I got back were actually pretty interesting. I honestly thought it would be very close between all three because all have played actually very well in our second unit. And quite frankly, all three of them have played more consistently than most of our starters. But the results actually came back with a resounding favor for Garret Temple, as he received 58% of the total votes, with 210 votes in at the time of this recording. Now, if you caught my video from yesterday where I talked about my expectations of the Bulls and the season's awards for the players now that we're a fourth of the way through the season, I said it was very close, really a toss-up between Garret Temple and Thaddeus Young for who I thought was the best player to come off the bench. Ultimately, I did go with Thaddeus just because he's been more efficient on both ends of the floor if you look at the numbers between the two. But what I will say in terms of, numbers aside, who has been more impactful and has even come up big in clutch situations closing out games. And what I really like about Garret Temple, aside from that overall impact, is the mentorship and coaching he provides for the Bulls' young core. And so that's what I wanted to talk about in today's video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. The story of Garret Temple's career is a pretty interesting one and not the typical path of an NBA player. And I'll admit, I didn't know a ton about Garret Temple at all before signing with the Bulls. In fact, my knowledge of him was actually very little. Other than that, he was a journeyman who had gone around from team to team and was a decent defender. Now, when the Bulls signed him, I really thought, this was just a filler signing by Arturis because, again, my thought was he's assessing the roster this year because he's new in the role that he's in. He'll see who fits and who doesn't and start making bigger changes next offseason. So I viewed the Garret Temple signing as more of a filler deal on a one-year contract that doesn't impact the books for next season. And he would provide veteran leadership and act as a mentor for the younger guys. I honestly wasn't even sure if he was going to be seeing that many minutes or even be in the rotation for that matter because of his age, his position, and the fact that Billy Donovan likes to stick with a 9 to 10 man rotation. But Temple has probably been one of the most impactful and consistent players on this roster, and dare I say it, and actually one of you guys brought this up in a hot take and I agreed with it, this was probably one of the best free agent signings we've seen in a long time for the Bulls, which isn't saying much. It's actually kind of sad, but I'm very impressed with his play, and I actually hope the Bulls are able to keep him by re-signing him to an extension in the offseason. So what's interesting about the story of Garret Temple is that he's a 34-year-old player, but this is only his 11th year in the league. Thaddeus Young, as an example, is younger than him at 32, but he's playing in his 14th season in the league. And that's because Garret Temple was not your typical high school phenom, your one-and-done type college player who comes into the league right out of the gate as a freshman, that you see from most players who actually end up playing in the league into their mid-30s anyway. As a senior in high school, he averaged 13.9 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, and 5.5 assists, which isn't anything terrible. I would have loved to have those kind of numbers when I was playing in high school, but most players in the NBA, they were All-Americans or top 100 high school recruits who completely dominated in high school. Temple ended up going to play for LSU, and he redshirted his freshman year as it was clear he likely wouldn't get much playing time given the competition on the team. The following season, in his freshman year where he actually played, he averaged 5.1 points per game. His sophomore year, he averaged 8.6 points per game. His junior year, 6.4, and then in his senior year, 7.1. Now, Garret Temple has never really been known for his scoring. He's been more known for, a strong and scrappy defender. In his senior season, he actually earned all SEC defensive team honors, and he was named to the SEC all second team. Temple, although, he had hopes of being selected in the 2009 NBA draft, ultimately, he went undrafted, and despite joining the Houston Rockets Summer League, eventually signed with them, he was later waived before the season started. He ended up playing in the D League, now known as the G League, and signed 3 separate 10-day contracts in the second half of the 2009-2010 season, one with the Houston Rockets, the Sacramento Kings, and the San Antonio Spurs. All of those spread out, but ultimately did not secure a longer-term contract with any of those teams. The following season, Garret Temple continued to work hard, was invited to join the Spurs Summer League in 2010, made the team, but again was then waived shortly before the regular season began. He went back to the D-League, again signed 2 10-day contracts with the Bucks. He was not extended for either of those, signed 2 additional 10-day contracts with the Charlotte Bobcats, and actually ended up getting signed for the last month of the season. In 2011-2012, Garret Temple ended up actually playing overseas in Italy. The following season, in 2012, he joined the Summer League again, this time for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He ended up signing with the Miami Heat in September before the season started, but again was waived prior to the start of the season and went back to the D-League. Then on Christmas Day in 2012, Garret Temple signed his first long-term contract, and I say that in air quotes because it was only for the rest of the season, and that was to play for the Washington Wizards. However, it was only partially a guaranteed deal, but this is where Temple's hard work during all those seasons in the D-League and the 10-day contracts that he received finally paid off, as he was really starting to make a name for himself. Not being anything stellar, but a good, solid role player. And he re-signed with the Wizards the following offseason and ended up staying with them for the next 4 years. And after his stint with the Washington Wizards, which was from 2012 to 2016, he played the next 2 seasons with the Kings, 1 season with the Grizzlies, the Clippers, and the Nets, before he landed where he's at right now with the Bulls. Now, I know that was a long-winded history, and apologies for those that aren't interested in basketball history. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that kind of thing. I love hearing players' backstories, where they came from, and their journey to the NBA. And the reason I bring all of this up, bringing Garret Temple's story, is because I do feel it says a lot about his character, not only as a basketball player, but as a person who has a strong work ethic, who continued to believe in himself and never gave up on his dream of being an NBA basketball player. And when you had to work that hard to get to where you are, you're not going to take it for granted, as what might be the case for some players who are naturally very gifted at the game and maybe didn't have to work as hard as Garret Temple did to get to where he is. And when you have that drive in you, that motivation to always get better, even through the struggles of getting there, it enables you to become the mentor, the coach, to motivate other guys to do the same. It's pretty incredible that Garret Temple is having one of the best years of his career, averaging 9.6 points per game, his second highest ever behind last season, where he averaged 10.3 points per game. He's shooting the best he's ever had in his career at 40% from 3, 46.7% from the field. He's playing some of the best defense in his career as well, with a great true defensive rating, which the Bulls have really needed this season. And the guy is doing all of this coming off having COVID just a few weeks before the regular season started. I love what he brings to this team: the leadership, the mentorship, the hard-nosed defense, high basketball IQ. I'm not saying he's one of the Bulls' best players or the most talented, but he is one of the most impactful players on this Bulls roster, which I would have never thought I would say if it was just a couple months ago. I want to know what you guys think though. Maybe you already knew the story of Garret Temple and his path to the NBA. Do you think the Bulls should look to re-sign him on a cheap deal to continue helping and mentoring our young core? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. The Bulls are taking on the Blazers tonight. I'm hoping that the Bulls can bounce back and snap the 2-game skid that they're currently on. I'll have a live chat both on here in the channel as well as on the Discord server, so be sure to check that out. The link is in the description. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.